So when we talk about social media, brothers and sisters, we're not talking about children. We're talking about adults. We're talking about adolescents. We're talking about mid-age. We're talking about teens. We're talking about everybody, right? When we talk about social media. Without a shadow of a doubt, what's happening today, humanity at large has never ever experienced before. Relatively speaking, social media is a new phenomenon. It's a new phenomenon, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He talks about how our children are a fitna, right? He talks about how a spouse is considered a fitna. He also talks about how money and wealth is a fitna, right? So the word in the Quran, the fitna, has many contexts and it has many positions and situations in the Quran. However, the fitna of social media is a fitna like no other out there. Wallahi, it is a fitna like no other fitna out there. And for those of you who recently got on social media, you can probably look at yourself in the mirror and really hold yourself accountable and say, subhanAllah, I've changed drastically. I'm a new Muhammad, I'm a new Ali, I'm a new Aisha, I'm a new Radiyya. When I was offline versus how I am online, my dhikr, the word of the Quran that I have before, I mean, it's changed you as a person. And I'm speaking myself here, number one, it has changed personally me. But it takes time for you to find that out later on and say, subhanAllah, before when I was waiting for someone outside, I used to make dhikr. I would try to say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, right? The shahada, if you will, 100 times a day. Now, when you're waiting for someone outside, what do we do almost immediately? We get on our phones. We check to see if there's a status that's missing or something that's missing, right? We get on Instagram. And for those of you who are doing duck poses, I say it's probably not appropriate to begin with, but try to minimize that as well. So you change as a person, right? You're waiting for someone. Oh, before you used to open up the Quran and say, you know what, let me make muraja of Surah Al-Tahrim. Let me make muraja of Surah Nuh. But now you find, oh, I just got 5 minutes. So what do? Immediately, your knee-jerk reaction tells you to get online. Either it's YouTube or Facebook, or so you notice that your time for dhikr is minimized, your time for the Quran is minimized, and you've become a totally new person. Now, when the radio first came out, Muslims were not too fond of the radio. At the turn of the beginning of the 20th century, when the advent or when technology came about and Muslims heard of the radio, like ask your grandfathers, right? Who can vouch for that? Like when you first, anybody here old enough who actually can understand what, fi kibar, anybody here old enough who can attest to this? That the elderly will tell you that when the radio, they will tell you that my father, when he first heard the radio, was like, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. What is this? Right? They treated it, they treated it with a great deal of skepticism. They weren't fond of it, right? So then they would devote some of their time to what? To the radio. After the radio, what came out later on is the television. So when the television later on came out, Muslims found out that they're wasting their time watching the television, right? And that idea of wholesome shows and wholesome America is something really of the past. Like it is almost impossible for you today just to say, you know what, I have some spare time, I have some pastime, I'm just going to watch a television with my children, some television, a TV show with my children. This concept of wholesome, pure doesn't exist anymore, because the B word, it's okay to say on the television. The F word, it's okay to say on the television, even in shows, right? Cartoon-like shows. It wasn't before like this in the past. So moving on, right? The radio, and then came the television. After the television came what? The computer. For those of you who remember, back in the early 90s, you went to Best Buy and you bought this huge computer, and you needed about 2 or 3 people to carry it, right? And it is only the adults who can get on the computer. And to get on the computer, you had a passcode. And after the passcode, then you can start surfing the internet. But that's after 5 minutes of waiting, because the internet wasn't that fast. So what I'm trying to get at here is that it took a lot of time before you got online. So after the radio, after the television, after the PCs and computers, then we got the laptops. The laptops, these are portable devices that you can take from one place to another. Because before in the early 90s, your PC, it was at home, it stayed at home, and out of the home, it did not leave. So now what happens is you have the laptop. The laptop, you can carry it, take it with you to the coffee shop, you can take it with you to the wedding, you can take it with you to the masjid, you can take it with you places, right? Okay, so all of these are distractions. Now, what I call the mother of all distractions is al-hatif. Al-hatif al-jawwal. The cell phone, I consider, you know how the Prophet ﷺ, when he talks about al-khaba'ith, the mother of all impurities, what does he speak of? Al-khamr. الخبائث الخمر. So what I call the mother of all distractions is the telephone. These cell phones that we carry in our pockets. It was never since the time of Adam, it was never this easy to gain access to technology like we do today. The access of technology was never readily, easily accessible like it is today. Today, you're in the bathroom and you find yourself on your smartphone. Today, you're at the Masjid in Jumu'ah. The khatib is putting you to sleep. What do some people do? Well, I've seen this with my very own eyes. You're at khutbah al-Jumu'ah and you're screaming at the top of your lungs and you're saying Allah and you're screaming the hellfire and you're screaming, the eternal blessings of paradise, and you're like, guys, this is serious. And the brother's back there, wallah la'ala badu. He doesn't care about what you're saying. He's scrolling on the internet. You're saying qala Allah, qala Rasul, he's on the internet, on his phone, scrolling back and forth. Wallah ma'ala balu. He absolutely does not care what you have to say, right? So having this access to a world of knowledge out there was never the case. For things to have this kind of access, it was generally never the case. All right. Now, we as Muslims, when we talk about social media, there's always in Islam this concept of maslaha and mafsada. Before ulama speak of something of it being halal or haram, the ulama have always said, okay, what's the maslaha and what's the mafsada? How good is this? Is it going to truly enhance my life? Or is it going to completely cripple and ruin my life? Now, no one can deny there are certain good things you can do with social media, but guess what? No sane person can deny the negatives that you find on social media. Is there good on social media? You can do many good things on social media. Is there a lot of bad and a lot of bad baggage that comes with social media? Yes. But no one can deny the other. There's harm, but there's good, and there's good, but there's also harm. But no one can deny both. Now you have to look at yourself and literally evaluate yourself and ask yourself a question. What is it for me? Not for all of us. It's not a one size fits all. What is social media doing for me? As a father, I have to ask myself a question. What is social media doing for me? I'm a father. I have a wife who has rights over me. I have children who have rights over me. I have an employer who has rights over me. I have neighbors who have rights over me. I have the masjid that has rights over me. So I have to ask myself, my situation as a father or as a parent is very different, drastically different than that of a teenager. Because teenagers, generally speaking, don't have the responsibilities that parents have. The same thing for the wife. Now, the wife who's on social media constantly has to ask herself this crucial, pivotal question. I have a husband who has rights over me. I have kids who have rights over me. I have neighbors. I have a mother. I have a father. I have children. I have a house. I have babies to take care of. What good is it for me when I'm on social media as a mother today? Now, the person who doesn't have responsibilities, you can make an argument that, this absolutely does nothing for me. But your fitna is otherwise. So the fitna of the elderly person differs drastically from the fitna of the younger person. Because the problem is that you as an elderly person, you have responsibilities that are pulling you left, right, and center. As a young man, it's not necessarily the responsibility with social media, it's more of the peer pressure. How is it changing you as a person? What is it doing for you? Is it doing more harm? Is it enhancing your life? And that's why we as Muslims, wallahi, and please, you see, when we talk about social media, there's a bigger picture. Ask yourself right now, why am I on social media? And just for you, why are you right now on social media? Is it because everybody's on social media? Or is it because, you know what? I don't trust CNN, I don't trust Fox News, I don't trust Al Jazeera. I get my news from other sources. And those sources happen to be on social media. أنت سل نفسك. Just بينك وبين نفسك, ask yourself, why am I on social media to begin with? The answer that you're going to give as a father is going to vary drastically from the answer that you're going to get from a young man. And as a father, why are you on social media? For instance, I'll give you my answer. Me as a da'i, as a public speaker, the reason why I'm on social media is because I write certain